The homeless population came to me. I wasn't looking to help the homeless population. I just had people who came to us wanting food to feed their kids, and they were going through the line, thought they were construction workers, and then come to find out, no, they weren't construction workers. These were homeless people with children living in tents that had lost jobs, lost houses, lost their van, and suddenly found themselves on the street and didn't know where to go.
Well, I grew up in New York, and I actually moved down here to get married back in 2000, I believe it was 4 or 5, and I ended up in a very dangerously abusive relationship with someone who unfortunately had a lot of power in the judicial system.
That love brings all change, and love brings relationship. And so we want those scripture verses to reach in and touch their heart, because the real healing comes from that. When you've been rejected, or you've been shamed, or you feel guilty for a bad decision, you're not going to make right choices. So our job is to bring Christ in their lives so that they have a peace and they know that there's hope, and to be a friend. And you know, you can do a lot of things in life if you have somebody who cares about you, really cares about you, wants to make a difference in your life. And that's the purpose of Manna House, is to be your friend today, to walk you through that crisis, and then you come be a friend to somebody else.
And it was after having escaped that violent marriage and literally turning from, you know, a family situation at home to a homeless single mother, and I was 9 months pregnant at the time. I was just like, oh my God, I'm homeless now, and what do I do from here? And I'd never experienced living in a shelter ever before in my life. I'd never experienced not being able to visit my family or call my family. It was a situation where I was advised by the courts and the legal staff, you know, don't call your friends, don't call your family, because any information could be information that could be, you know, obtained and you could be found or something like that. So I just felt incredibly alone.
So when I became the executive director of the North Alabama Coalition for the Homeless, I am one of those people that feel that I need to be interacting with the population that I serve. There's no way that I can identify what their needs are if I don't observe what their needs are. So I searched my resources in the internet and tried to see what agencies provided any type of services to people that were in the population of the clientele that I would be working with. And the Manna House is one of those, because she feeds a lot of our clients. So I came and I started volunteering with Fran, and we're required to do a homeless count every year for HUD in order for us to get our funding for our supportive housing programs. So it was time for us to do our homeless count, and I came to this location because I knew there was a lot of clients that met that description that actually got services here.
So as I began living my life in shelter, it took several months before the shock of everything kind of wore off. And I felt like I was at the mercy of life. I didn't feel like I had any control over anything that I was doing at that point, except for making choices for the survival of myself and my children.
If people would just recognize that homelessness is not the stereotype of the person that you always see on television, okay? There are different facets of homelessness.
I had no job, I had no money, I had no access to money. I had insurance, my children had insurance, but I couldn't use it because I could be tracked. I had debit cards, I had credit cards that I could not use because I could be tracked. So literally, I was at the mercy of the homeless system.
There are a lot of people out there that have jobs, but they don't have jobs that produce an income that they could actually rent their apartment, pay utilities, food, and car insurance or transportation to get to work. So there are people out there with degrees that just had a life-changing circumstance, such as they may have been a government employee and they got furloughed and didn't get called back. So there are a lot of people that are experiencing homeless now due to the economy changes that probably never envisioned themselves being in that situation.
I was going through endless court cases, put in positions where, because my daughter had witnessed the incident, the state wanted to call her on the stand, and that would have put her in more danger, and she was only 9 years old at the time. So I refused to let her testify. And about 9 months after I left, the decision was made not by this court, but by a court in another state, because my daughter is not biologically my husband at the time's child. It was decided that I was in a lethal situation, or that my situation was deemed lethal, and that I was living in shelter and I was homeless and I couldn't provide her a stable home. So she was taken away and I lost custody of her because I was homeless. Because for a lot of people, it's so easy to give up, because you feel like you just keep running into walls, you keep running, you're like, I can't, I just, 4 steps forward and 6 steps back. You kind of feel like you just can't get ahead.
There's just so many different situations out there to where people are really not getting an adequate picture when they just see that general stereotype person that you see on the movies that's homeless.
What was meant to destroy me, God turned it all the way around, and now it's like I'm blessing people and helping people and pulling community services together so that we could better service those in the community, because I know firsthand where there are gaps, because I experienced them, as a single mom. Oh, and by the way, 6 years after my daughter was taken, I got full custody of her back as well. So now she's in her 2nd year of college, and it just turned out to be it's just amazing how I got here, and I was just like this. And now I'm set, and it just keeps getting better and better with time.
I think we're a community, and if we're really a community, we cover the weak and we cover the strong. We're a friend to the weak, we're a friend to the strong, and we're only as strong as our weakest link. And that phrase says a lot about homelessness. So if you have a homeless person that's not treated for mental illness, or a homeless mom living out of her car but going to work every day, or kids going to school every day, and we don't come alongside of them, then we cannot grow stronger as a community.
It just would blow your mind on how many different planes life operates. And for the first time in my life, I was like, my eyes were open to it, because it just was nothing I ever thought about.